afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this Thursday, October 29th, 2020. I'm David Menzies, and my lovely co-host, as always, is Sheila, the She-Devil Gun Reid, broadcasting from Northern Alberta. How you doing out there, Sheila?
I'm doing well. Shout out to all the non-essentials out there. I think we're on week 30 or 32, 8 months for sure of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And it seems like there's no end in sight, hey?
You know what? When you say non-essentials, here's the thing, Sheila. I was just thinking about this on the drive into the studio today. The devastation I see when I'm going down Main Street, when I'm visiting the mall, the for lease, for rent, the going out of business signs. I think it's a great environment to be in if you're in the sign business. And yet what I couldn't help but think about, Sheila, is the fact that in the public sector, there's been no layoffs, not a single one. No. And we know for a fact that these people are far less busy than they were pre-pandemic. So my question is, I don't understand why our elected officials, why our bureaucrats are so tone deaf, especially since they keep preaching that mantra, we're all in this together, which I say right now, Sheila, is the biggest lie of all to come out of 2020.
What a disgusting state of affairs society is when we've divided people into two columns, essentials and non-essentials. That these jobs matter, yours doesn't. Your freedom matters, yours doesn't. It's gross. We have two classes of people right now, instead of, all people being equal because their rights are endowed to them by virtue of being born human. This is a scary, dark time in human history, I think.
And, Sheila, they almost seem to, our elected officials, rub it in our nose. And I go back to
Sure they do.
Yeah. And I go back to the report here in Toronto where Mayor John Tory had hired Saad Rafi, who was formerly the CEO of the Pan Scam Games. Here's a guy, a career bureaucrat, that spent 10 times more on these stupid games that nobody wanted and nobody attended virtually than the revenue that was taken in. And this guy was hired to be the head consultant of how businesses should reopen post-pandemic and get this, Sheila, a salary of around $50,000 per month. For a lot of Canadians, that's an annual salary. And here's what you do, Mr. Rafi, for your plan to allow businesses to open. Just say this: open, please. You're free to open. That's all they need. They're entrepreneurs. They know what it's like to invest. They know what it's like to make payroll. Clearly something you and your silly City Hall bureaucrats and elected politicians, for the most part, don't know how to do.
David, can you remind me off air? I have an access to information request that just came back about that. And I was leafing through it and I can't believe you think the salary was outrageous. Wait till you see the expense budget they allotted these people. It is outrageous. So remind me when we get off air. We've got a follow-up story that you could do on that. I should tell everybody what we're doing today because we have a very busy show. We want to talk about the beheadings in France. We want to talk about the free speech trial that I had to sit in on yesterday. I say had to, but I would have sat in on it yesterday anyway, because it's such an important issue. And then we have CBC's fake news report, which I promised everybody we would get to on Tuesday, but we just ran out of time. So we have to get to those issues, but we should tell everybody what we're doing because we are 6 minutes into the show and I haven't explained super chats or anything like that. So this is our daily live stream. Used to just be on Friday, just be the boss hosting, unless he was off doing something else, like flying to the UK to rescue Tommy Robinson from the latest attempts to silence him or persecute him. But during the pandemic, there's really more news than ever. Things are changing so fast every day that we decided to expand the live stream, bring more news to the non-essentials out there. And so David and I host Tuesday and Thursday. The boss hosts Monday, Wednesday, Friday. and gives David and I a chance to catch up on the day's events and have a little chit chat as friends. Gives our viewers a chance to interact with each other in the live chat. And it gives them a chance to comment on the work that we do, because the mainstream media definitely doesn't allow that. They want your money in the form of a bailout, but they don't want your opinion about the work that they do. And it gives you a chance to support the work that we do here at Rebel News through something called a super chat. If you go down to the bottom of the live chat, there's a little $sign there. If you click on that, it'll give you the opportunity to throw some money in there. And the more money you give, the more characters you get. And by doing that, you support the work that we do, but it also allows you to leave a comment that everybody will see, because it will be highlighted and then pinned to the top. And David and I will do our best to address your comment, whether it's a question, a concern, a topic that you want to put on our radar, something that you want us to talk about that may be completely off topic. Sometimes we get insults, sometimes we get compliments, but this is a bit of a free speech zone, so now's your chance.
100%. And Sheila, before we get to all those important topics that you did mention, High Energy Andrew Says just came in, and just like the old-fashioned days, he gave me a piece of paper with handwritten note on it. So it's this just in. And let me tell our folks, Sheila, if they haven't been on to our YouTube channel or our website, we just this morning launched iwillopen.ca. Now, our colleague down under, Avi Yamini, he has had enormous success with this very same module. It started with Harry's menswear shop, who opened illegally and was charged by the authorities. And then that was followed by a hair salon, and then a couple of restaurants. And so a real chain reaction was created. And what we are doing for them, we're not paying the fine, but we're crowdfunding for their legal fees, and we're going to fight all of those Aussie fines. Well, it's been so successful in Australia, folks. It has come to Canada. There it is, I Will Open Canada. The official website is iwillopen.ca. And Sheila, I am overjoyed to report that even though this website is just mere hours old, we are getting several entries, and many of them, the lion's share, are coming from, you'll never believe the city, Ottawa. So we have people right in the nation's capital saying, and by the way, I want to be clear, I'm not advising anyone to open illegally. I'm not giving you any kind of counsel that way. The pitch is simply this. If you are going this route, if you've decided, as my dearly departed grandfather used to say in a Scottish accent, enough is enough, but this is too bloody much. If you are deciding to open your doors and serve your customers in defiance of the law, and you get slapped with a ticket, I will come to your business, I will tell your story, we will crowdfund the legal fees. And like I said, Sheila, already a whole whack in Ottawa, so I guess early next week, I guess I know where I'm driving off to the nation's capital.
That's the thing here. These people really have nothing left to lose.
Yep.
You're facing bankruptcy, you're facing absolute destruction. The government has robbed you of your dreams of an entrepreneurial future. What have you got to lose? Yeah. So what? They're going to give you a ticket. At least you're going down fighting. And a lot of freedom-minded customers are going to see what you're doing and support you. So, if these businesses open, we're going to be there to help them fight back. Yeah,
indeed. It's almost like what Donald Trump says to those living in Democrat hellhole states and cities that have voted a Democrat for generations. Look around you. Look around when you're in, say, Baltimore. What do you have to lose by switching your vote to the Republican candidate? And likewise, like what you said, that's the key thing, Sheila. If I'm going to go bankrupt, if you're going to just, take a shot at me, how do you get blood out of a stone, in other words, right? Yeah. What difference does it make? And I agree. I I like to follow the rule of law, but this is an unjust law. This is an unfair law. This is a law being foisted on the populace by people, like I said earlier, they've never had to run a business. They've never had to make payroll. They have been public servants and bureaucrats and politicians eating out of the taxpayer trough for decades. They are immune to this. Again, it's we're all in this together. No, we're not. If you have a government job, everything's jolly good. If you're in the retail sector, if you're running a restaurant, if you're running a gym, a yoga studio, a martial arts dojo, no, you're not getting paid like these others are getting paid. So again, if you are an entrepreneur, folks, and if you've said, I have nothing to lose, I'm opening my doors. Again, I'm not advising you to do that, but if that's what you've come to on your own decision, let us know your story, especially if you get fined, and I will come out and tell your story, and we shall crowdfund your legal fees. Again, as Sheila said, what do you got to lose?
If you can corral everybody into the Walmart or the Costco, surely these businesses should be allowed to open, and it is absolutely despicable that they're not. These families are being absolutely destroyed. And again, if you're one of those businesses who is going to take a stand, please reach out to us. Let us know at iwillopen.ca, David, or .com?
.ca. You know what? Perfect. Actually, Mr. Producer, I know both of those domain names were available. Do you know which one we decided to go with? So let us just clarify that. Andrew says has it at .ca.
Perfect.
You don't think he's trying to sabotage? Oh, both work. There you go. Again.
Perfect.
You can't lose.
Yep. Okay. Yes, please.
All right. So Sheila, pardon me. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, very disturbing news. It's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's perverse, actually. In recent weeks, I've been, reading the columns of actually Muslim columnists, such as our friend Tariq Fatah. And it's kind of uncanny how they've been Cassandras in terms of one thing that you notice is sort of being put way, way onto the back burner during this pandemic has been incidents that have, involved radical Islam. And the warning is, don't think it's disappeared just because of the Wuhan virus. It is still ever a clear and present danger. And Sheila, look at the news out of France. Again, poor France, dealing with this problem of Islamic radicals, extremists, murderers, terrorists, whatever you want to call them. Tell the folks, if they haven't heard the news, what happened there yesterday.
So I just pulled it up on the BBC because I think they had the most recently updated coverage of it. It updated approximately 2 minutes ago. 3 people have died in a knife attack at a church in Nice in what French President Emmanuel Macron said was an Islamic terrorist attack. Interesting that he used those words. I think Macron has had a bit of a real come to Jesus moment about what's going on in his country, and he's starting to use the appropriate language. Anyway, Macron said France would not surrender its core values. Again, strong language. After visiting the Notre Dame Basilica in the southern city, thousands of troops are being deployed to protect churches and schools. So I think Macron is realizing that this is an attack, an Islamic attack on Christianity, because these things are happening to churches in and around and near churches. In Nice, one elderly victim was virtually beheaded. Officials said another woman and man also died. A male suspect was shot and detained. Anti-terror prosecutors have opened an investigation into the attack, and France has raised its national security alert to its highest level. French media are quoting sources close to the investigation as saying the attacker was a 21-year-old Tunisian migrant. However, authorities have not provided any details. The mayor of Nice spoke of, quote, Islamofascism, again, strong language for once, and said the suspect had repeated endlessly the phrase Allahu Akbar. 2 other attacks. So these are attacks that are targeted at France. This I didn't realize. 2 other attacks took place on Thursday, one in France and one in Saudi Arabia. A man was shot dead in a southern French city of Avignon after threatening police with a handgun. Separately, a guard was attacked outside the French consulate in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. A suspect was arrested and a guard was taken to hospital. This is outrageous. I mean, and you have leaders, some of the Islamic dictators of the world, threatening to boycott France for using this kind of language.
Yeah, not only threatening to boycott France, but I saw Tariq Fatah put out a tweet by an imam in Pakistan who said, we need to nuke France. And what's doubly scaring about that, it's not just the rhetoric, but it's the fact that Pakistan actually does have nuclear bombs. And by the way, Sheila, I just want to say here that in case people are, putting their head in the sand, oh, that's just stuff out there, and and it's, look what Charlie Hebdo did with those disrespectful cartoons, yada yada yada. I just did an interview with Nasser Pooley yesterday in Markham, Ontario, outside the Markham townhouse. Markham is just a city north of Toronto, folks, where a 58-year-old man, Mehdi Amin, was viciously murdered last week with a knife. Mr. Amin was a soft-spoken gentleman, but he was a harsh critic of the Iranian regime. And we don't have any proof about this, and it's still a matter of police investigation for the York Regional Police. I would argue the federal police should get involved in this one. But if you speak to the Persian community in Canada, this has all the hallmarks of a hit, that because he was so vocal in his criticism of the Islamo-fascist dictatorship that is Iran, this is what ended his life. And Mr. Pooley was a good friend of Mr. Amin. I can tell you this, Sheila, an ominous note. I noticed it right away as I was interviewing Nasser. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. He always wears it. This is in Canada, folks, right? Yeah. This is, if we're having a contrary opinion to the mullahs in Iran. Now, that story has to be edited and posted, but that's a sneak preview of something, a brutal murder with a knife for this individual, Mr. Amin, who simply had a differing opinion to what the mullahs were saying. And I got to say, just less than 10 minutes north of that townhouse in Richmond Hill, the city I live in, Sheila, that is where Masjid Johari, the member of parliament for Richmond Hill, lives. Justin Trudeau, Liberal, of course, who of all, and in Richmond Hill, huge, significant Persian minority there, Sheila, I think maybe approaching 14% of the population.
Yeah, people who fled the regime.
People who fled. I love the Persian Canadians. Their restaurants, I patronize. I go to their shops. I've made friends. They all tried to leave Iran, starting way back in the early 80s because of the revolution. And what are the odds that the only Persian Canadian I've ever had any beef with happens to be the member of parliament for that region who is pro-Iranian regime? He tweets out his love of the regime. He's had meetings where he's had members of the Iranian parliament come over to Canada and meet with them. That's an elected member of the ruling government. That is so shameful and disgusting to me, Sheila. But again, it just shows you how even when you try to escape this dark cloud of Islamism and extremism, it can still manage to follow you over the ocean to where you're living.
Well, and it's so shocking. You hear of persecution and targeting of Christian communities in the Middle East. I hate to say that it's usual, but it really is. And I've seen what happens there firsthand with my own eyes. I've interviewed survivors of it. But besides all those things we just talked about that happened in France, this has also happened in the last year. October 2020, it seems crazy, but this is already out of our minds. French teacher Samuel Paty is beheaded outside of a school in a suburb of Paris. Yeah. Just 1 month before. In September 2022, people are stabbed and seriously hurt in Paris near the former offices of Charlie Hebdo, where Islamic militants carried out a deadly attack in 2015 and October 2019. Radicalized police computer operator is shot dead after stabbing to death 3 officers and a civilian worker at a Paris police headquarters.
Wow.
That's just in the last year, plus everything that's happening now. It's being targeted at churches. In 2016, a priest was killed in church. And the Islamic dictators of the world are angry at France for calling it what it is, finally. Turkey's threatening to cut ties with Macron. Who cares? Why is Turkey still in NATO, by the way?
Yep.
The former president of Indonesia said, well, you should be more respectful of Muslims then if you don't want them chopping your heads off. This is ridiculous. There's nothing in a free society that should be off limits to criticism.
Yeah. And
I'm a Catholic, so I get all the jokes about pedophile priests all the time. You know what? I just shrug it off. It's a free society. It's gross. It's insulting to all the good priests out there, but I just shrug it off because this is people's rights to do it. It doesn't give me the ability to go around and chop people's heads off. This is the bigotry of low expectations, actually, that this is how you think that Muslims would and could respond. I think that's the bigotry of low expectations. I don't think that this is how reasonable people of the Muslim faith do respond. So let's stop talking about it that way, or at least these dictators should stop talking about it that way.
No, I was just having a conversation this morning with our beloved colleague, Raheel Raza, who is a practicing Muslim. And folks, there's a difference between a Muslim and an Islamist, okay?
Yes,
a quantum difference. Secondly, if you look at the largest victim group demographic, thanks to Islamic extremism, terrorism, it is Muslims. But the Islamists have been so brilliant, Sheila, at creating an environment in the free West where even saying these terms is an act of Islamophobia. It's not Islamophobia. How is calling out murderers of innocent Muslims Islamophobic? And that's why, the one, silver lining that I can take from the story that you read, as you mentioned, when you have authorities actually using the term Islamofascism, Islamic extremism, that is what it is. You can't solve a problem, folks, if you can't even call the problem for what it is. And Sheila, I'll put it this way to you. Could you ever imagine Justin Trudeau ever using the word Islamofascism? I don't think so, not when one of his colleagues in the House happens to be Majid Johari, who is a supporter of the biggest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. So that's not going to fly here. Maybe, I don't know, perhaps France is at a breaking point. Maybe, God forbid this doesn't happen, maybe we have to suffer more acts like that, and we have had more acts like that. But in Canada, I'm afraid you become an elected member of parliament, or you get a $10.5 million paycheck for hurt feelings.
Yeah, let's point out who the real bigots are, because I make a distinction between regular Muslims, peaceful Muslims, and Islamists.
Yep.
But the left conflates the two.
Yep.
You cannot criticize Islamists without being anti-Muslim.
Yep.
They're the ones who are lumping the Islamists in with all Muslims. That's definitely not what we're doing. We're saying there's a problem here with this Islamist group, this radicalized group, and we need to deal with it. And that doesn't mean that we are against all Muslims. That means that we are concerned with dealing with this one problem, and there's no conflation between the two. We should not be conflating the two, and we shouldn't be using this other group of people to hide the other people behind.
100%. And Sheila, I think at this point, before Mr. Producer tells you so, I think we have some super chats, right?
We definitely do. Okay, let's put the glasses on. A Savvy gives us $5. Could Bill 218 actually work out as a positive, as a means for government to open the province without fear of being sued for any future fatalities? That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way. I don't think the government has that kind of foresight.
Yeah, but
I really don't.
Sheila, using that logic, the government should shut down the highways and allow 1 car on per hour driving at 5 kilometers an hour for safety, because if we let them go at highway speed, thousands of cars at a time, and somebody gets killed, then we're on the hook. I mean, no, there is risk in life. That's what the game of life is all about. And I think the cure for this pandemic, Sheila, has been far worse than the curse in terms of all the other factors that we've seen. Depression spiking, spousal abuse, people dying on elective surgery lists, alcoholism, substance abuse, and on it goes. Does that sound like a tailor-made cure for this pandemic? No.
Okay, let's keep going because we have so much to talk about. We're halfway through the show.
No.
Yes. Sativa and Me gives us $5. We the people do not consent to a COVID hoax. Lisa Bruce gives us $2. I love you both and admire you both profoundly. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Pink Phoenix Nails gives us $1.49. Lisa Bruce again, $5. I love your interaction. You are both my favorites to watch. I love how passionate and brave you both are. P.S. Please do not tell Ezra. Sometimes he watches.
He probably
so
already
he might know. Yeah. I think he knows that there are people who like David and I better. Sativa and Me gives us $5. We the people do not consent. Let's have 500. We do not consent. Actually, that is a good time for me to stop and avoid a text message or phone call from Yankee, and suggested everybody take a minute. There are almost 1,600 of you watching the show right now. Doesn't cost you anything, but it is a huge help to us here at Rebel News. Please just go over, click the little thumbs up on the stream here. That helps us appear higher in the YouTube algorithm. It helps our channel within the YouTube algorithm. And it is really, truly one of the best ways to help people find us. And it really doesn't cost you anything. It's just like a split second of your time. Thank you in advance.
That does? I always wondered, Yeah. Remember, Sheila, I am unfrozen caveman journalist. Your fast-moving cars and tall buildings frighten and confuse me.
David, you drive a green car. Your car doesn't go fast. How to Cut Hair gives us $2.79. We support you. Thank you very much. Kim Price Finnemore gives us $5. No super chat. Thank you. Troy S. $6.99. The greatest tag team on YouTube.
Wow.
Unless you're watching old clips of the Heart Foundation. Anyway, we need 2 hours versus 1 hour of you guys. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Lisa Bruce again. Thank you, Lisa. Can't thank you enough for all you've taught me. Oh, thanks very much. Kim Price Finnemore, another $5. No super chat. Allison Nopley. I hope that's right, Allison. I hope I got your name right. $50. That's very generous. And Allison says, thank you for Free Speech Forum. You got it. Mina Vanderleest gives us $20. I don't see a super chat, but that is very generous. Viking Insane, regular viewer, regular donor. I fear social distancing masks will be permanent. I hate the word social distancing or the phrase social distancing. I can't take it. It's one of those things that is snuck into our lexicon, and I don't want it to become part of our regular parlance because it is dumb and it doesn't make any sense.
But you know what, Sheila? I think I was ahead of the curve in a way because many decades ago, I totally embraced socialist distancing. I'm going to give myself a Barry Horowitz pat on the back for that. But not social distancing. No, I don't like that.
I can't stand it. Lori McKinley gives us $6.99. I don't see a super chat. Edward Chirick gives us $5.99 Australian. Lady Goo Goo Gaga. Okay. Daniel Speakman gives us $5. What do you think about all the cuts in health works? They should on strike when the Alberta government work hard with COVID. You know what the strike is about in Alberta? I think it's almost 70% of Alberta's laundry services are provided privately anyway. And nobody's having a problem But the other 30%, which the NDP nationalized at great expense, because apparently the NDP thought the only people who could use a washing machine and hit the button to start the washing machine was the government worker making government benefits. It's not like they have to go down to the river and beat them on a rock. You put them in an automated washing machine and hit the button. That is not government wage work. And if you're nationalizing this stuff, you're stealing a business from an entrepreneur. But the unions are mad because if you take all these laundry workers out of the mix and all these people who are making food, because they said, oh, we also need to privatize food service. Of course. Nobody does fast food better than the private sector. Like, I can't think of anything worse than a government fast food joint. And so the government said, yeah, there's no reason for the taxpayer to be paying these inflated wages. We're broke. And the union is mad because this will bleed them of union dues when you take those people out of the union and stick them back in the private sector. And so that's why the union is out there striking. It's got nothing to do with actual healthcare. And by the way, that hospital, the Royal Alexandra Hospital, where they had their little wildcat strike, guess what? They've got a COVID outbreak now, which is, I'll be damned. They told me the only people who know how to sanitize the place, the bed sheets, were government workers. And yet, here they are with a COVID outbreak. Fancy that. So that's the story of the Alberta Wildcat healthcare strike.
But Sheila, to be fair, you can't have the laundry workers going down to the river to bang the laundry on a rock because, as you well know, in the near future, there's going to be 54 acres of solar panels in the Edmonton River Valley, blocking the access to do so. So, make sure you state all the facts here, okay, Sheila?
Right. I forgot. God, Edmonton is such a disaster. Anyway, Jane Bray gives us $5. 9 COVID cases on Vancouver Island, nobody in hospitals, yet everybody mind controlled by mainstream media. Got to wear a mask. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I think Fort Saskatchewan has 11 cases, maybe it's 8, and they just went to mandatory masks. However, they did put an expiry date on their mandatory mask bylaw of December 31st, which means they'll have to re-argue the efficacy and the reasons for having a mask. But if you can instill it with 11 or 8 people, not that that's significantly different between those two numbers, if you can impose it on people with that few, I mean, it doesn't matter what the arguments are, I suppose, is my point.
Oh, and Sheila, again, our great colleague down under, Avi Yamini, his coverage of what's happening in Melbourne, which is virtually a police state on some days, what he's reported sometimes a daily case rate of 1. And yet the overreach of the police, there's a great video, folks. It's these these 2 poor cyclists that just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time it seems to be the Australian version of Burger King, Hungry Jack's. I don't know what the story is there. They just pulled over to Hungry Jack's to have a burger, and the next thing you know, they're being kennelled by the police because everyone in that parking lot, because a fight broke out, was now under arrest. It's crazy, but please check out some of those videos to see how bad this insanity can get.
Marcia Hines gives us $5. What are your thoughts on the internment camps? Ezra had quite a rant on the show here about the internment camps. David, you've covered the internment camps. We are still actively investigating them. So stay tuned, I guess, is my advice to you, because we are working on something.
He and the boy wonder Bexty is on this file, folks, and he's going to have a whopper of a report, I'm sure.
Yes, he is. MEC gives us $5. In BC, Horgan majority, there goes BC, re-Ford's Bill 218. Comments, please. Just heard about it. Scary times. Thank you. Thanks to you both and Rebel. You know what? I think we actually clipped out Ezra's rant about Bill 218, and it's up on the YouTube channel. And really, nobody does it better than Ezra. So I advise you to take a look at that only when we're done here. With regard to the BC's Horgan majority, boy, oh boy, the NDP government was sure careful to keep a bit of a hands-off approach to the COVID outbreak. Then Horgan wins a majority, and then they've moved it to like, oh, you can only have 6 people in your private house during the pandemic. It was like that they cracked down on civil liberties. Fancy that. Corey Brooks gives us $5. Aaron O'Toole tweeted this morning, Islamist? Okay, there. Islamist terrorism is a scourge that must be denounced and fought. Oh, that's great, actually. Yeah. We haven't really heard the word Islamist used by a conservative politician since Stephen Harper said it was one of the most dangerous things facing the world in an interview once. So I'm happy to hear him say that.
Me too.
Yeah. Jane Bray gives us $5. Tell the puzzler we love him. Oh, I try to tell him that every single day. Look at him.
What's with those socks? Are those the socks you wear when you're on a trampoline or something? There's some kind of technology woven into those socks, don't you think, Sheila?
Those are puzzling socks. It's so that the little pieces don't stick to your socks when you step on them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I knew there was something to those socks.
Yeah. VR Ver2 gives us $5. Wake up, Rebel. Thanks for defending our country. Keep up the live streams. We will. Tino gives us $5. No super chat. That's very generous. Jonathan Randall gives us $5. Islam is incompatible with open, free, democratic, capitalist Western societies. I think Islamism isn't compatible, but I believe in religious freedom for everybody, as long as your religious freedom doesn't end up beheading a teacher on a street. Aunt Crazy gives us $5. Maybe they are trying to keep the exceptional quality of hospital food. I forget which hospital it was in the Edmonton area, but they did have a Tim Hortons in it. And I think that Tim Hortons actually lost money because when the Tim Hortons is run by the government, even the money tree of a Tim Hortons franchise and the captive supply of customers in a hospital, they still managed to lose money. So, bring on the private sector.
How is that possible? All you have to do with a franchise like that, as you said, in a captive environment, is open the door. Right? How do you lose money?
It's like how they made pot legal and now everybody's losing money on pot. Like the government in Alberta, because the AGLC, the Gaming and Liquor Commission, who sort of controls the sale of things, they were losing money on pot. I think they still are losing money on pot. Everything the government touches that touches on the private sector manages to lose money. Troy S. gives us $6.99. Gotta love it when Sheila gets going on a rant. These public sector unions in Alberta and the lies they tell. And people are like, don't you care about healthcare? I'm like, it's the washing machine. No, actually, I don't care about the washing machine, and I don't think we should be paying government wages to wrap sandwiches or use a washing machine, pour detergent in a washing machine. I just don't think that's a healthcare job. Kane Enmark gives us $5. Where are all the flu deaths this season? Is the flu dead? Yeah. Santino gives us $5. Will Trudeau's ties to the CCP ever become exposed? I'm doing my best. I exposed how the CCP was buying influence through the Trudeau Foundation, $1 million to the Trudeau Foundation. And Trudeau was basically peddling access for cash with the Trudeau Foundation. But I mean, people just don't care. And the mainstream media protects him. So I suppose just keep watching us if you want to see those ties continue to be exposed. Snudley, $4.99, thinking a longer Wednesday show with callers or people on Skype would be cool. Love you both. And Sheila, wear your glasses. They are cute. I also think that they bust up my crow's feet a little bit. They hit me in the right place, so it breaks up the line. Bernard Hutchison gives us $3.99. Ford and cronies afraid of Rocco's lawsuit. I don't know, but Ford should be afraid of his base, because if he keeps this up, he will not be elected. He absolutely will not, because people are just going to say, well, is he really that much different than the Liberals? Is he doing anything different than what Kathleen Wynne would have done during a pandemic? I'm not so sure.
I'm with you 100% on that, Sheila. It may as well be the Bob Rae NDP in Ontario, going back to the early 90s, with the way this so-called conservative premier, who ran on the slogans for the people and Ontario open for business, because it's neither right now. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. John B gives us $10. I don't see a super chat. Jonathan Randall, $5. Islamism is a weasel word. Islam in its current pure state was never reformed in its 1400-year history. These horrific acts are justified by the Quran. Look, I'm not an expert in the Quran, but I am an expert in the fact that there are great, moderate Muslims out there. Raheel Raza is one of them. And she's fighting for the reformation of parts of her religion. And I think when we say that there is no distinction between her and the kind of people who would use that religion to cut people's heads off, I think is doing a real disservice to the work that she's trying to do. Yep. And she's putting herself in great harm's way to do it. Because if they're cutting the heads off of people who would dare talk or publish a cartoon, imagine what they would do to sweet Raheel if they could. Mr. Hammer Dance gives us $5.56. We need a second amendment in this Canada. Keep up the good work. Rebel, not my prime minister. You know what? We need property rights, really. I mean, let's start there. We don't really have property rights protected in our Constitution, so let's just start there, because my firearms are also my lawfully acquired property.
Yeah, and if we're cherry-picking amendment rights from the U.S. Constitution, Sheila, could we also have
start with the first one?
The First Amendment, given all the rumblings out of Ottawa, how they're going to be regulating the internet in the months to come? Holy moly! And you know, of course, who that is targeted at, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It would be the pesky conservative outlet that exists only on the internet. Yeah. No, that's not meant to crack down on the people at the Globe and Mail, that's for sure. MEDW gives us $5. For comparison's sake, it's estimated there will be 83,000 cancer deaths in Canada in 2020 by the Canadian Cancer Society. Flu averages 8,000 per year. Yeah, and most of those people are also elderly. I'm not sure. I meant Tuesday. Oh, the person who suggested thinking a longer Wednesday show, I think that person meant Tuesday, which is very flattering if that's the case. Thank you very much. We should get to...
Oh, before we do, Sheila, very quickly, I want to respond to one of those super chats who was very complimentary about us being such a great tag team. Because, we always go off on a tangerine into the world of professional wrestling. I want to ask you, greatest tag team of all time for you, my friend?
Oh, boy. That's tough. Heart Foundation?
Yeah. I'm
Demolition?
with you.
I think it's Heart Foundation.
Mr. Producer says DX. I say for an actual tag team, in terms of a career tag team, the Heart Foundation, not just for the wrestling skills, but for how they work the mic, which is crucial. And I think the best gimmicky tag team was Mankind and The Rock and Sock connection. The runner-up being when Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man, when the Madness met the Mania, got together briefly. Those are the two.
Briefly.
Yeah. Gimmicky
very briefly.
But yeah, Heart Foundation for me as well.
A Heart Foundation, although special mention to the Bushwhackers.
Oh, yes.
Yes, just because we got to represent Down Under now that Abby's on the team. Right. And I forget which...
Wait a minute, weren't they from New Zealand?
Oh, maybe they were.
You could start a real Pier 5 brawl getting those people mixed up.
I know.
Someone someone super chat and explain if the Bushwhackers were from New Zealand or Australia. That would be much appreciated.
I forget, but I do remember. I forget which Royal Rumble it was, but one of them bushwhacked into the ring. And he got into the ring, someone grabbed him and heaved him out the other side, and he just bushwhacked off to the dressing room. And that was the greatest appearance in an entire Royal Rumble ever.
Oh, those were the days.
Oh, wrestling was so much better. People today don't even understand the testosterone soap opera that wrestling used to be compared to what it is now.
For sure. And the whole idea of that, how diverse wrestling was in terms of body types, right? It wasn't like
Yeah.
Vince McMahon has this fetish, it seems, that every wrestler has to have like a G.I. Joe,
They all have to look like Shawn Michaels.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
the build he's going for, yeah.
And I mentioned, Mankind, Mick Foley. He had 3 different personas in the WWE, and if he was an up-and-coming wrestler today, he doesn't get in the door, Sheila. But with what he did in the ring and how he worked the mic, there was perhaps nobody better when you look at that 1-2 punch than Mick Foley. But based on body type, Vince McMahon would never give him a tryout, and that's sad. I mean, there's more to wrestling than just I don't know, Chippendale model looks to the wrestlers.
Yes, it's true. And the Bushwhackers were indeed from New Zealand. And they
Barry
did,
Horowitz part.
and that makes perfect sense because they eventually then rebranded themselves into the sheep herders. And there are way more sheep in New Zealand than there are people. When I was a kid, because I grew up on a sheep farm, the people who sheared our sheep, there's special schools for people who shear sheep in New Zealand. They would shear the sheep in New Zealand. They would travel. There's these traveling convoys of people. They would travel there. Then as the seasons go, then they would go to the UK and shear the sheep there. And then they would go to the US and shear the sheep there. And then they would come up to Canada. And it's under 2 minutes to shear a sheep. It's fascinating stuff.
Well,
Anyway.
I'll tell you, I'm looking at Mr. Producer's haircut. It looks like they dropped by the Rebel office last week.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard.
Lots of super chats.
Okay. Yes, I'll get to those. But I did hear that they really took Justin right down to the wood.
Yeah, he said it's a crew cut. I think the crew bailed out.
Mr. Coffee Break gives us £5. Love from the UK. Viking Insane, $2. Best tag team, Dink and Doink the Clowns. Okay, that's pretty good too. Also horrifying. Fraser McBurney, $12. This Saturday is Halloween. Mums and dads living in Hampton, bring your kids to Bayfront Park between 5 and 6 p.m. for some trick-or-treating. Let's have some fun and make memories. Please promise me you're not going to give those kids those molasses toffee things or Tootsie Rolls, because I'm calling the cops on you if you do. That's child abuse. It should be illegal. There's no excuse to give out that kind of candy.
The molasses toffee, are those ones, Sheila? It's like the packaging is like a witch on a...
Orange.
Well,
Yeah.
You know what? I don't even know where these people buy those. I never see them for sale anywhere.
I saw
but they
some in
always end up
Shoppers
in your
Drug Mart.
Halloween bag somehow.
Yeah, I saw some in Shoppers Drug Mart yesterday. I had a conversation with Lady Menzoid. She agrees with me that those things should be made illegal. And I think it's a conspiracy from the dentist, because you bite on those and it's like, okay, well, there goes my dental work. Just yanked it right out of my face.
I think an unauthorized conversation with Lady Menzoid should be made illegal.
Don't tell me who I can be friends with. Okay. John Rampton gives us $5. Civ Nattery is a lie. Oh, a civil... What do you mean? Civic nationalism? The state is not the nation. Paper Canadians will be the downfall of Canada. Darren Ellis gives us $100.
Wow.
Darren, thank you so
Thank
much. Thanks for the great work that you do. Oh, you know what? It's our pleasure. I would be annoying liberals on the internet anyway if I didn't work for Ezra Levant. Just don't tell him that. Andrew Vanderhoek gives us $10. I don't see a super chat, but that's very generous. And Troy S. gives us $6.99. Sorry, Sheila, Bushwhackers were from New Zealand. They definitely were. Agree. Heart Foundation, greatest team. And British Bulldogs. Yes, I will. British Bulldogs,
Yep.
Although Davy Boy Smith would probably get in trouble these days for his cultural appropriation of the braids that he sometimes wore. And he would have the beads with the British flag colors on them on the end. But yeah, for sure, he would be canceled for appropriating African hairstyles.
Oh, what a world.
What a world we live in. Bernard Hutchison, $3.99. Did you see Ted Cruz hammer Dorsey of Twitter? Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz. I did see some of his back and forth with Jack Dorsey. Justin, I don't know if you have a photo of Jack Dorsey.
Yeah. What's with that Unabomber look? That's what I want to know.
Ezra calls him Rasputin. I fear that Jack Dorsey, look at him. You tell me that this isn't the formulaic, as I put it, the formulaic Howard Hughes style devolution of a reclusive billionaire happening right in front of us. I bet you he hasn't had a shower in 6 months. His fingernails are super long. I bet you his fingernails are like Howard Hughes, super long, and he has Kleenex box sneakers. Like, he has to. This is what happens when you are a billionaire, surrounding yourself with yes men and thinking that you control the world. You turn into that guy.
Yeah,
no,
it doesn't look like the poster boy for hygiene, does he now, Sheila?
Not at all. We have 9 minutes left in the show. 2 things that we have to get to.
Okay.
The first one is the thing that I promised on Tuesday. Justin, it's the CBC story. It's our exclusive access to information investigation written up by a writer I didn't name last time, but it was the beautiful Margaret. Smart, sassy, Debbie Harry knockoff.
Isn't
knockoff.
She's
not a knockoff,
dead
though.
ringer for young
better.
Deborah Harry, because Deborah Harry, I think she's like 71 now, so it's not current Deborah Harry, it's the Deborah Harry of back when Deborah Harry was cranking out the hits.
Better than young Debbie Harry. I think she does Debbie Harry better than Deborah Harry. But anyways, let's get to this, because this is like a total creep show. An exclusive investigation by Rebel News has revealed that the CBC's strategic plan included a stated goal to form a, quote, and this is directly from the document, an emotional bond between young viewers and both the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and Radio Canada. Do you want the CBC forming an emotional bond with your kids? Because that was their strategic plan. The strategic plan also notes that the corporation, I love how they refer to themselves as the corporation, very Orwellian, is also taking steps to cultivate younger audiences. In addition to seeking to form emotional bonds with kids, the CBC intends to be an online safe space that will teach kids how to identify fake news. I think if it has CBC in the URL, there's your first guess. But anyways, from page 3 of the plan, the corporation's new strategic plan indicates that CBC Radio Canada wants to engage with young audiences by becoming a safe online destination for kids and improving media literacy. The plan also calls for engaging with young audiences and increasing children's programming on all platforms, though considers 34-year-olds to be on the younger side of their viewership. I guess when the only people who really watch CBC are the people who are too old to understand how their remote control works, so they're just captured by the CBC as they sit in their chair waiting for their grandkids to come over and change the channel. Anyways, the plan also calls for engaging with young... so I already went through that. With projects like Radio Canada's RAD... Okay, first off, Radio Canada, kids don't use the word RAD anymore, which is designed to develop innovative news formats for 18 to 34-year-olds through social media. The corporation is also taking steps to cultivate younger audiences. They want to become a leading brand for children with youth content, spark young people's curiosity, and create an emotional bond with CBC Radio Canada, expand our range of services for all ages with more kids and youth content available across CBC Radio Canada partner platforms. This is something that we discovered in our exclusive access to information work. Just the creepiness, the sheer creepiness of CBC. And if people want to help fund our exclusive access to information investigations, they can do that at rebelinvestigates.com. Nobody is asking these sorts of questions of the CBC at all. Nobody's asking these sorts of questions from the government either. It's just us. CBC is not going to tell on themselves for wanting to be emotionally bonded with other people's kids. Like, who puts that in their strategic business plan?
Oh, I'll tell you who, Sheila. I think CBC should go all in and do a rebranding and a renaming. Instead of CBC, how about CULT? Because that language you just read for the last couple of minutes sounds right out of a cult playbook to me, Sheila. And also they're espousing the philosophy of both Marxists and those on Madison Avenue, which is get them young, get them forever. That's the other agenda here. If CBC was a private broadcaster and that's their shtick, fine. But it just enrages me that they get tax dollars and lots of it, 1.5 billion at least a year. Sheila, that is outrageous. But great job by Margaret unearthing that stuff.
Oh, and God bless Margaret, because I know what it's like to read these things. It sucks your soul a little bit the more you read it. And so she went through that meticulously, because these sorts of things, they do take time, they do take money. Often we have to appeal them repeatedly before we do get the documents. But and the programming for CBC's younger audience, it's terrible. If you go to CBC Kids, it's nothing but like LGBTQ stuff directed at 8-year-olds and younger, and climate change fear mongering. Like they're trying to fear bond to these kids, which is just weird and gross. I mean, gone are the days of, the Friendly Giant and Rusty the Chicken and him fixing that little rocking chair delicately with his hands on the mantle. That's gone. All that wholesomeness is gone. It's just pure weird down there.
Yeah, I mean, who'd have thunk it, Sheila, that today's Mr. Dress Up is getting into a thong and stiletto heels and nylon stockings.
Yeah. Right? Mr. Dress Up would be a drag king or queen these days, for sure. Anyways, wrapping that up, let's get to the other thing that's on our list that I promised that we would talk about. And Justin, I'm sorry if we go long, but we do need to talk about this. Yesterday, I was in court for over 7 hours in Alberta. I think I finally finished at 20 minutes after 5 yesterday. I was there observing we wanted a judicial review of something that happened to us in 2018 and 2019. Now, what happened? We put up a billboard, as we love to do, along the side of Highway 2 in Alberta. And our billboard said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, 40% of Alberta students are failing provincial exams. Wow. Albertans deserve better. Fire David Eggen. So fireeggen.com. David Eggen was the obviously failed education minister at the time. He's no longer education minister since the UCP won. But that was our billboard. We were calling on Rachel Notley to fire him, to remove him from cabinet, to demote him. Because, I mean, when 40% of Alberta school children are failing their provincial exams, that's atrocious. It kneecaps our economy in the future when we have an undereducated workforce. What happened to us is that Elections Alberta, a government agency, filed a complaint with the Elections Commissioner, another government agency, and the Elections Commissioner then began investigating us for breaking elections finance laws by putting up this billboard. Now, that's not an election sign. That's an editorial opinion expressed on a billboard on the side of the highway, which is just a more fun way than the failing newspapers are doing these days in the editorial sections of a newspaper. Exactly. The URL on it directed right back to our website, where you could learn more about just how awful David Eggen was. But we received a letter saying that we were being investigated, even though there's a carve-out in this really ridiculous, onerous, anti-free speech elections finance law that was passed by the NDP for journalism, which is exactly who we are. And the NDP know that because they had an investigation into themselves when they threw me into the legislature, and then they had to just admit that I was a journalist. But anyway, so they sent us a letter saying we're being investigated. We have our lawyers write back and say, okay, give us everything you got and let us know who's investigating us, how the complaint came to be. Show us everything. We want to mount a vigorous defense. We need to know what we're defending against. Shortly after that, they sent us a letter called Notice of Adverse Finding, which is a notice that you're guilty. They didn't allow us to participate in the process. They didn't present any evidence to us. We weren't allowed to present any evidence to them. It happened so fast. And they convicted us basically in a secret trial, knowing full well we had legal representation who is ready to get involved and just raring to go. So we said, hold on, buddy. We don't accept that we were found guilty of anything in a secret trial. We don't accept the $5,500 fine you're giving us. And we're appealing this, and we're making an application for a judicial review, which means we don't have secret trials. We also don't think that the elections commissioner should be the judge, jury, and executioner, which is what he is here in Alberta. He investigates you, he decides that you're guilty, and then he hands down the fine. There's no actual real process. It's just one guy making all the decisions as he goes. We wanted a real judge to take a look at this and say, they weren't given fair process. We don't have secret trials, and these things shouldn't happen in Canada. And that's what happened. And I should just go back a step, because when we filed an appeal saying, we're making an application for judicial review and we are making an application for an appeal, the elections commissioner then says, there's some sort of misunderstanding. You know that thing? You know that thing I gave you that said that was a notice of adverse finding, a finding of your guilt? This is a misunderstanding. What that says on the title is really not what it is. We're going to give you a reprimand instead. Well, we don't take reprimands from people when we didn't do anything wrong. And so, again, we made an application for an actual judge to look at the process of what happened to us, because this is censorship, plain and simple. And it's one government agency whipping up a complaint against us, specifically because there's this entrenched bureaucratic swamp that still remains in Alberta that Jason Kenney hasn't ripped out. That's where I was yesterday. I was there all day. People can follow my tweets, because I live tweeted the whole thing at rebeltrial.com. I think yesterday we probably accumulated $10,000 in legal bills. We're probably $50,000 into it. But here's the thing. This same elections commissioner came after a ton of other smaller conservative organizations who just took the fines and just took the reprimands, because they don't have the incredible support that we have from our viewers and supporters at home. So they just took the fines. They, took the hit to free speech in Alberta, to, their free political expression. They just took it because they couldn't fight back. So we're fighting back, I suppose, on behalf of everybody. So our first step is this judicial review, and then we're going to challenge the constitutionality of the law. And I should say that even though Rachel Notley is gone, it is my understanding that there were at least 6 taxpayer-funded lawyers there who were either participating in the proceedings, as one was, or lurking and watching in the proceedings, because I think they planned to fight us on the constitutional challenge. Some of them are in court today with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. I know that Jason Kenney has a new justice minister. He just took over from the old red Tory Doug Schweitzer, who did definitely have a vendetta against us. The new justice minister, I think, is a very free speech-minded guy, Casey Maydew. Maybe he doesn't know this is happening. So, Casey, this is your chance. Now you know it's happening. This has to stop. This is an attack on the free political expression of journalists in this country. And no one is standing with us except for the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. I give $70 a year to Penn Canada, and they've never done a damn thing for me once. You'd think they would be interested in this, nope. But they only care about the political free speech of journalists whose feelings are hurt by Donald Trump and not people who are really fighting the machinery and the behemoth of government and their never-ending deep pockets. And again, if people want to see, I did a little video about it explaining things as I was just headed into Zoom court yesterday. And they can see my live tweets, and they can also see all of our legal findings. So just so you can see like the timeline of everything the government did to us before we were ever even allowed to participate. This is the closest we've ever got to participation, is asking a judge to just look everything over. They can see that at rebeltrial.com.
You know, Sheila, I got to tell you, the worst thing I can say about these electoral commission kangaroo courts is they make human rights tribunals look like the Supreme Court, when it comes to following the rule of law, the procedures of a court. That is absolutely disgraceful, that story you've told. And, the thing is, too, Sheila, the really insidious thing here is I really believe they know that they don't have a leg to stand on, but that's besides the point. They will draw this out, make us incur more legal fees, and you see, that's the devil in the details, folks. We can, as the saying goes, win the battle, lose the war. We can win this battle. At the end of the day, we get slapped with a huge legal bill, whereas they just take it out of the taxpayer trough. No fuss, no muss. That's why we depend on you to crowdfund these. Otherwise, another organization that didn't have the resources they would get from a crowdfunding pledge, Sheila, would have to bend the knee for a wrong being put on them. And the last thing I'll say, going back 12 minutes ago or so, you see how I long and pine for something we'll never get here, the First Amendment?
Well, I mean, this harkens back to the kind of things that used to happen, or probably still happen, at these human rights commissions, where you have one person openly looking, searching around, sniffing around to file a complaint. And all the complaints seem to come from one person. Except in Alberta, they were coming from one government agency.
That's the worst. That is
a government agency. We were paying some guy to tattletale on us for things we hadn't done to another government agency to trigger off this crazy investigation. And I learned things yesterday I had no idea. They were harassing our sign guy, both government agencies, so the elections commissioner and the Alberta elections. They were both harassing our sign guy at the same time. Before they even let us know that we were under investigation, they were already harassing that guy. I mean, it's just the amount of resources they have spent so far attacking us. I know what we spent on legal fees, and we had one lawyer in court, really good lawyer, but just the one. And they had 6 yesterday up against us. And I think maybe when we have that constitutional challenge, there will be even more, but it's just us. And, the worst part is the Office of the Elections Commissioner doesn't even exist anymore. Jason Kenney got rid of it because it was used to abuse basically the free speech of conservatives. And when we put the billboard up, it wasn't even during an election period. So how are we under attack from the Office of the Elections Commissioner? But anyway, Jason Kenney did away with it. And basically the government's defense in all of this was, well, he had that power under the law at that time, so he used it.
Sheila, if the CSI TV franchise ever has a spin-off to, for, say, CSI Alberta, I think the framework of the show will be CSI Alberta investigating crimes that were never committed by criminals that don't exist. It's opposite day with those guys. It's absolutely staggering how abusive. This is the dictionary definition, I think, Sheila, of regulatory abuse. And they're abusing us, and they're abusing the concept of free speech. And thank goodness we're taking a stand against this garbage.
The government,
Super chats.
Yes, I know. The government tried to say that because we also admit to doing activism, that we shouldn't be covered under the journalism exemption there. Well, at least the difference between us and everybody else is we're just honest about it.
Jeez.
You know, CBC participates in activism every single day on behalf of Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
And so what? So now I have to give away my rights as a journalist if I want to help somebody who's under attack by the government, if their business is full.
According to them.
According to this government argument, I do. I have to say, I have the means to help you. I'd love to help you. I'd love to help you fight for your rights. But that means that I have to give away all my journalistic freedom. And I don't think that anybody in this country should be ever put in that position. And I refuse to be.
Good.
And anyways, again, if people want to help us, they can do that at rebeltrial.com. All the legal briefs are there. They're a little bit legally, but they're also as much in plain language as they can be. So I advise you to take a look at that and start writing down the dates so you can see how quick this happens. It's very crazy. And we have super chats as we're already 11 minutes past the hour. Fraser McBurney gives us $5. In my gift packs, I put everything. Mothers hate, but kids love. Good for you. No toothpaste. Thank you. The Bappas gives us $5. The best wrestlers of all time are Freddie, the Mad Dog Vachon, and Malumba. Ooh. CP gives us $5. Can I not send a link here? I think you can. I have the source of who you guys think is the fake memo came from. Please check it out. I cannot stress this enough. I read government memos all day long. I know what they look like. I know what they sound like. That is fake. Yeah. It just absolutely is fake, unless you're telling me the source of the disinformation, which I'm curious about. But that, please, friends, that memo is fake. It is 100% fake. Nobody has read more government memos than me, and it's fake. Eco-Slave Unchained, keep up the good work, gives us £5. Pamela Kingwell, $5. Thanks, Justin, for describing this. Pair character lifting some weights saying keep it up. We definitely will. Mark Leskler gives us $5. Keep up the good work. P.S. Only Ezra says my last name properly. Hi. I'll go back and rewatch to make sure that I get it right next time. Sorry, Mark. Lisa Bruce gives us $2. My only criticism to your show is way too short. Well, you got an extra 15 minutes. Stay, Lisa. Kenneth Melnichuk gives us $6.99. Halloween is the perfect time for dentists to hand out king-size cans of pop, not diet or chocolate bars, with their business info printed on them. That reminds me of my conspiracy theory about how I think veganism is a ploy from the blender companies. But anyway, Durfi gives us $5, gives us a thinking emoji, and Durfi $5. As a side note, I'm handing out candy for Halloween at this point. I don't care what Doug Ford says about COVID. Thank you very much. Do not let the government stand between you and spreading joy to little children. And I think we're all caught up, and it is 13 minutes past the hour.
Wow. Well, we got to hustle. Sheila, thank you so much. Great job, especially. Oh, one more.
One more super chat. Joe Stickle gives us $5, says go get him. Definitely will.
100%. Sheila, great job on the court issue that we're going through. And just want to say thank you to everybody that tuned in. A super special thank you to our super chatters and, of course, Justin behind the board. We will see you again next week, Tuesday, election night in the United States. Don't miss that show. Stay sane.